When Thomas Reed heard two little girls praying at his dead son's grave, he thought he was losing his mind. But when they turned around and said, "You're Daniel's daddy. He gave us his heart and kidney. He saved our lives," Thomas collapsed right there in the cemetery. What happened next changed everything he thought he knew about loss, love, and the power of a single choice made in the darkest moment of grief. This is a true story about a billionaire who had everything and nothing, and the two little girls who gave him a reason to live again. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll understand why some gifts truly do last forever. Welcome to Reality Untold Stories. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Section 1. The Lonely Walk. Let me tell you about Thomas Reed, a man who had everything money could buy, but nothing that truly mattered anymore. Every Saturday morning, Thomas would drive through the streets of Portland to Riverside Cemetery. He was 70 years old now, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much loss. His black car, expensive but understated, would park in the same spot every week. And then he'd walk. Always the same path, always the same destination. Thomas had built his fortune in real estate. Started with nothing, just a dream and determination, and over 40 years he built an empire worth nearly $3 billion. Skyscrapers, shopping centers, apartment complexes across the Pacific Northwest. His name was on buildings throughout the city. But none of that mattered anymore. He walked to visit his son, Daniel. His only child. The boy who'd grown into a man Thomas was so proud of. Daniel had been 34 when the accident happened. A terrible night, a drunk driver running a red light, and just like that, Thomas's whole world shattered. That was 6 years ago, but the pain felt as fresh as yesterday. Thomas's wife, Rebecca, had died of breast cancer when Daniel was only 9. After that, it had been just the two of them, father and son against the world. They'd been best friends. Daniel had been the reason Thomas kept going after Rebecca died. And when Daniel died, Thomas felt like he'd lost everything all over again. On this particular Saturday morning, the air was cool and damp. Fall had arrived in Portland, painting the cemetery in shades of orange and gold. Thomas carried fresh flowers, like he did every week. White roses, Daniel's favorite. As he approached Daniel's grave, a simple stone marker with his son's name and the dates that bookend too short a life, Thomas stopped in his tracks. Two little girls were kneeling there. They couldn't have been more than 8 years old. Twin sisters, he realized, looking at their identical faces. One wore a bright blue jacket, the other purple. Their black hair was braided, and they held each other's hands. Thomas stood frozen, confused. Who were these children? Why were they at his son's grave? He could hear them speaking softly, their small voices carrying on the morning breeze. They spoke together, like they'd memorized the words. "Thank you for saving us. Thank you for giving us life. We never got to meet you, but we think about you every day. Please watch over Mama. She loves you even though she never knew you." Thomas felt his heart squeeze tight in his chest. Saving them? Giving them life? What did that mean? The girls must have heard him because they turned around at the same time. Their brown eyes went wide when they saw him standing there. "Hello," one of them said politely. "Are you visiting someone?" Thomas's voice came out rough, like he hadn't used it in a while. "Yes. I'm visiting my son. This is his grave. Daniel Reed." The moment the words left his mouth, both girls started crying. Not quiet tears, but big, chest-heaving sobs. They grabbed onto each other, their small bodies shaking. Thomas panicked. He knelt down, ignoring the wet grass soaking through his expensive pants. "Oh no, please don't cry. I didn't mean to scare you. What's wrong?" The girl in blue looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "You're Daniel's daddy? You're really his daddy?" "Yes, I am," Thomas said gently. "But how do you know my son?" The girl in purple wiped her nose with her sleeve. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Because he gave us his organs. When he died, he saved our lives. I got his heart and my sister got his kidney. We were dying, but your son saved us." Time seemed to stop. Thomas felt dizzy, like the world was tilting sideways. He reached out and grabbed the gravestone to steady himself, his expensive flowers falling forgotten to the ground. Thomas stared at these two little girls, his mind struggling to understand what they'd just told him. 6 years ago, at the hospital, in the worst moment of his life, the doctors had asked about organ donation. Thomas had been numb, barely functioning, drowning in grief. But he'd said yes. He knew Daniel would have wanted that. Daniel had always been the kind of person who helped others, who gave without expecting anything back. But after signing those papers, Thomas had never asked questions. Never wanted to know who received Daniel's organs. The pain was too raw, too overwhelming. He tried to bury that knowledge along with his son. Now, looking at these crying children, the reality hit him like a truck. "You received my son's organs?" he whispered. Both girls nodded. The one in blue touched her chest. "I'm Lily. I got his heart. My sister Rose got his kidney. We were only 3 years old. The doctors said we maybe had a few days left. Both of us were dying at the same time." Rose added, "We don't remember much because we were so little. But our mama tells us the story all the time. She says a hero saved us. She says someone chose to give the greatest gift even when they were losing everything." Thomas couldn't hold it together anymore. He sat down right there in the wet grass, tears pouring down his face. His whole body shook. "My son saved you. Daniel saved you." "Mr. Reed? Girls, what's happening?" A woman's voice called out, filled with concern. Thomas looked up to see a woman jogging toward them. She was in her late 30s, wearing medical scrubs and a jacket that had seen better days. Her black hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and worry lined her face. "Mama," Lily called out. "This is him. This is Daniel's father." The woman stopped dead. Her hand flew to her mouth. For a long moment, she just stood there, staring at Thomas like she was seeing a ghost. "Mr. Reed," she finally said, her voice breaking. "I'm Carla Martinez. These are my daughters, Lily and Rose. They're alive because of your son." Thomas tried to stand, his legs weak, and Carla rushed forward to help him up. The girls hovered close, still sniffling. "I've wanted to meet you for 6 years, Carla said, tears in her eyes now too. "After the transplants, I tried to find out about Daniel's family. I wanted to say thank you, to tell you what his sacrifice meant. But I was told you didn't want contact with the recipients. I respected that, but not a day has gone by when I haven't thought about you and your son." Thomas looked at the twins again. Really looked at them. They were healthy, full of life and energy. Lily unconsciously kept her hand over her heart. Daniel's heart, beating in this little girl's chest. "Tell me everything," Thomas said, his voice hoarse. "Please. I need to know." They found a bench nearby, and Carla told him the story while the girls sat on either side of Thomas, like they'd known him forever. The twins had been born premature. Both had serious health problems from birth, heart and kidney defects that the doctors couldn't fix. Carla was a single mother, working as a paramedic, watching her babies get sicker every day. By the time they were 3, both girls were dying. "I prayed for a miracle," Carla said quietly. "But I felt so guilty praying for something that meant someone else had to die. Then one night the hospital called. They said they'd found a donor. Not just for one of my girls, but for both of them. The doctor said it was almost impossible, that everything matched perfectly. Your son's blood type, his size, everything. It was 1 in a million." Thomas listened, his heart breaking and healing at the same time. "I didn't know. I couldn't face knowing. It felt like losing him all over again." "I understand," Carla said. "But Mr. Reed, your son didn't just save my daughters. He saved me too." Over the next few weeks, something unexpected happened. Thomas became part of Carla's life, and she became part of his. He learned that despite working full-time as a paramedic, often pulling double shifts, Carla was barely making ends meet. The twins needed regular checkups, medications, and monitoring. Even with insurance, the copays and medical expenses added up. Her car was 15 years old and constantly breaking down. Their apartment was small, in a rough neighborhood, but it was all she could afford. Carla never complained, never asked for anything. She was proud, hardworking, determined to give her girls the best life possible despite the struggles. Thomas didn't immediately tell Carla about his wealth. Instead, he started helping in quiet ways. A prize she'd supposedly won, a reliable SUV for families of transplant recipients, an anonymous fund that mysteriously covered medical expenses, a better apartment in a safer neighborhood that just happened to have reduced rent for healthcare workers. But more than money, Thomas gave something he hadn't given anyone in 6 years. He gave his heart. He showed up at the girls' school play. Rose played a sunflower, and Lily was the narrator, and Thomas sat in the front row, clapping louder than anyone. He taught them to play checkers on rainy afternoons. He took them to the aquarium and the science museum. He was there for birthdays with carefully chosen presents, for scraped knees with band-aids and encouragement, for bedtime stories that made them laugh. For Thomas, these girls became his connection to Daniel. Proof that his son's life had mattered, that his death had meaning. But they also became precious to him in their own right. 2 remarkable children who faced each day with courage and joy. Lily was artistic and creative, always drawing pictures that she'd present to Thomas with pride. Rose was curious about everything, asking a million questions, reading books meant for kids twice her age. One evening, about 8 months after that first meeting at the cemetery, Thomas invited Carla and the girls to his house for dinner. They'd been meeting regularly, but always at the park or simple restaurants. He'd never brought them home. When Carla's old car pulled up to the gate of Thomas's estate in the West Hills, her jaw dropped. The house was enormous, all glass and wood and stunning views of the city below. "Mr. Reed," she said slowly as they stood in his living room, "I think we need to talk." After the girls were settled in the media room watching a movie, Thomas and Carla sat in his study. He told her everything. About his real estate empire, his billions, how he'd been helping her anonymously. Carla was quiet for a long time. Then she started crying. "I don't want your money," she said. "I mean, of course the help has been incredible, life-changing. But that's not why I brought the girls to Daniel's grave every week. That's not why I wanted to meet you." "I know," Thomas said. "But please, let me help. Let me do this. Not just for you, but for me. You and the girls. You've given me a reason to wake up in the morning again. You've given me family. Please let me do this for my family." Carla wiped her eyes. "There's something I want to do too, then. If you're going to help us, I want to help others. There are so many families like mine was, desperate and scared, watching their children suffer. What if we could help them?" Thomas leaned forward. "What are you thinking?" "A foundation," Carla said. "In Daniel's name. To help families dealing with pediatric transplants. To cover the costs insurance doesn't. To provide support so parents don't have to choose between being at their child's bedside and paying rent." Thomas felt something shift inside his chest. Purpose. Hope. A way to turn tragedy into something beautiful. "Let's do it," he said. "The Daniel Reed Foundation. You'll run it. I'll fund it. And together, we'll make sure Daniel's gift keeps giving." Within a year, the Daniel Reed Foundation became a reality. Carla left her paramedic job to run it full-time, and Thomas provided whatever resources were needed. They rented a building in downtown Portland, hired a small staff, and began reaching out to hospitals and transplant centers. The foundation did more than just provide money. They offered counseling services, support groups for parents and children, help navigating the complicated medical and insurance systems. They connected donor families with recipients when both sides wanted that connection. They created a community of people who understood what it meant to lose everything and gain everything, sometimes at the same time. But perhaps the most beautiful thing was the memorial garden they created behind the foundation building. It was a peaceful space where donor families could plant trees and flowers in honor of their loved ones, where recipients could come to reflect and give thanks. At the center stood a stone with Daniel's name and a quote he loved: "The greatest gift you can give someone is a piece of your heart." The foundation helped hundreds of families in that first year alone. Thomas would visit the office regularly, talking with families, hearing their stories. Each one reminded him that Daniel's death, as tragic as it was, had created ripples of hope that spread farther than he'd ever imagined. The twins thrived too. At age 10, Lily discovered a passion for music. "It's the heart," she'd insist to anyone who'd listen. "Daniel's heart loves music." She learned to play piano, and her playing was beautiful, filled with emotion that seemed beyond her years. Rose became fascinated with medicine. She'd visit the foundation, asking questions about transplants and organs and how the body works. "I'm going to be a transplant surgeon," she'd announce confidently. "I'm going to save people like Daniel saved me." Thomas watched them grow with wonder. Every milestone felt like a miracle. Their first day of middle school, Lily's first piano recital, Rose's science fair project about organ donation. Each moment was a gift he'd never expected to receive. One Saturday morning, as they all visited Daniel's grave together, something special happened. It was the 6-year anniversary of that first meeting at the cemetery. But this time, they weren't alone. The foundation had organized a memorial service, and dozens of families came. Parents whose children had received transplants. Donor families who'd found the courage to give even in their darkest hour. Doctors and nurses who worked in transplant medicine. All people whose lives had been touched by Daniel's legacy. Lily and Rose, now 10 years old, had prepared something special. They'd written a song together, and Lily would play it on piano while they both sang. The song was called "A Heart That Still Beats," and it told the story of love that doesn't end with death, of gifts that last forever, of how one person's choice can change the world. As Thomas listened to the girls sing, their voices clear and strong, he looked around at all these people. All these lives connected by organ donation, by loss and hope, by the decision to give even when it hurt. He thought about Daniel, his kind, generous son who'd always put others first. Daniel had been a social worker, helping homeless teenagers find housing and hope. He'd volunteered at soup kitchens, mentored kids, always gave his spare change to anyone who asked. Daniel had lived with an open heart, and even in death, he'd given that heart away. After the ceremony, as people shared food and stories, Rose came and stood beside Thomas. She'd started calling him Grandpa about a year ago, and every time she said it, Thomas felt his eyes get misty. "Are you okay, Grandpa?" she asked, taking his hand. Thomas looked at this amazing child, alive because of Daniel's gift. He looked at her sister playing piano for a group of fascinated kids. He looked at Carla, laughing with other parents, making them feel less alone. "I'm more than okay," he said honestly. "I'm grateful. Let me tell you how this story ends. Or maybe, how it continues." 5 years later, Lily and Rose are 15 now. Teenagers with dreams and hopes and futures that once seemed impossible. Lily performs piano concerts to raise money for the foundation. She's talented enough that music schools are already reaching out, offering scholarships. She wrote a piece called Daniel's Song that she performs at every memorial service, and there's not a dry eye in the house when she plays it. Rose volunteers at the hospital on weekends. She shadows transplant coordinators, asks a million questions, studies harder than any kid her age should have to. She's determined to become a surgeon, to give back what was given to her. The Daniel Reed Foundation has grown beyond anything Thomas imagined. They've helped over 1,000 families now. They've opened chapters in 3 other cities. They've changed laws, improving organ donation rates and insurance coverage for transplant recipients. But more than the numbers, it's the individual stories that matter. The 5-year-old boy who got a new liver and drew pictures of superheroes for his donor family. The teenage girl who received new lungs and ran her first 5K race. The parents who found comfort talking with other parents who understood their pain. Thomas is 76 now. His hair is completely white, his steps a bit slower, but his heart is full in a way it hasn't been since Daniel died. Every Saturday, he still visits the cemetery. But now he goes with Carla, Lily, and Rose. They bring flowers and tell Daniel about their week. Lily tells him about her music. Rose tells him about the medical journal articles she's been reading. Carla tells him about the families they've helped. And Thomas, he talks to his son about the unexpected family that came from tragedy, about second chances, and the power of giving. "You'd be so proud of these girls," Thomas always says. "You'd love them. And I think, somehow, you do know them. I think a part of you lives on in them, not just physically, but in their kindness, their compassion, their desire to help others." Last month, something remarkable happened. A young man came to the foundation, 25 years old, healthy and strong. He had received Daniel's other kidney 12 years ago, and he'd been searching for Thomas ever since. His name was James, and he'd been 18 when Daniel's kidney saved his life. He'd gone on to college, became a teacher, got married. And now he wanted to say thank you. "Your son gave me my future," James told Thomas, tears in his eyes. "I'm a teacher now because of him. I have students who I'm helping, kids who might have given up if I wasn't there. And I'm only there because your son gave me a chance to live." 3 people. 3 complete strangers who now carry pieces of Daniel inside them, who live and love and make the world better because Daniel chose to be an organ donor. Thomas thinks about that choice a lot. At the time, signing those papers felt like the hardest thing he'd ever done. It felt like giving up, like admitting Daniel was really gone. But now he understands. It wasn't giving up. It was letting go. Letting Daniel's generous spirit continue in a different form. Letting his love ripple outward in ways Thomas never could have imagined. Some nights, Thomas sits in his study and looks at photos. Daniel as a baby, as a little boy, as a young man. And next to those photos are new ones. Lily at her piano recital. Rose in her volunteer badge at the hospital. The whole family at Thanksgiving. James with his wife and newborn baby. A child who exists because Daniel's gift let James live long enough to become a father. This is Daniel's legacy. Not just the buildings with Thomas's name on them, not the foundation or the memorial garden, but the love that continues. The lives that keep going. The hearts that still beat. And every night before Thomas goes to sleep, he says the same thing. "Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for teaching me that there's always a reason to hope. Always a reason to love, always a reason to keep going. Your heart still beats. Your legacy still grows. And your father still loves you, forever and always." That's the thing about love, you see. It doesn't end. Not really. It just finds new ways to give.